And we are live. What is up, everybody? This is Nick from P2W Fantasy, live here on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook now. And what we have going on today is a brand new show with a co-host who I have to my right or left, depending on how you're looking at the screen here. But very excited about this. Been preparing for this new Thursday show that I'll tell you a little bit about. But I do want to first introduce my new co-host every Thursday, Stephie Small. So Stephie actually came on my show and ironically had to host that show for like 10 seconds because I got kicked out of my own stream. But yeah, I had the benefit of having her on my show before. I was actually on a show that she was part of as well. And as soon as that show was no longer, I jumped on asking Stephie like, hey, do you want to fill in a new show with P2W Fantasy? And after multiple days of negotiating contracts and talking to managers and talking to people, we settled it out. But yeah, Stephie's always been a person I respected just because nonstop interacting with people, putting out content, and you are 100% yourself and unfiltered and just tell it, how it is. So Stephie, thank you for being on the show. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, just because this is the first show you are co-hosting and where we can find you, all that good stuff?
Of course. I'm so excited. This is Nick is one of my favorite people in this space ever. And I feel like we never had the opportunity to collab kind of independently. So this will be a blast that we get to do that finally. Always been someone, since I started out, it probably wasn't too long before I found you on here. But yeah, right now just with FTN doing my thing on Twitter. And now this, I'm excited to have something to take my Thursdays now. Very excited. It's going to be a very, very fun show.
Absolutely. So the tag on the show that we put, or I came up with, is just Skrip to ships. So what Stephie and I are going to be focused on is talking about some news, talking about some dynasty, some redraft, all different things to make you successful towards getting those championships in fantasy and just being up to date with football. I think it just kind of aligns with the whole playing to win mantra. But yeah, Stephie and I will be live here every Thursday. So I'm very excited about that. Before we get into anything related to the show, I do want to say that this podcast is sponsored and partnered by the Fantasy Points Media Group. So fantasypoints.com is where I go for all of my research for podcasts, articles, debates, whatever the case is. Fantasypoints.com. They have everything you're looking for in one spot. So if you do want to check that out, fantasypoints.com/subscribe. The promo code you can use is 21win10. You can get a good discount there. Well worth it. All right. So what Stephie and I have going on today, Stephie, I'm sure you haven't talked a lot about the draft, right?
No, I mean, have people been talking about it, or I haven't heard much
about it. No opinions, nothing related to my own team, nothing like that. So I figured, hey, let's just break the ice and talk about the NFL draft and some questions that might be surrounding what actually happened. So we'll go through our own teams to start off with, and then I have a series of questions that I'm going to shoot out to Stephie, throw my opinion as well, that might have just your football outlooks or your fantasy outlooks for the upcoming year and for dynasty and things like that. So we will get started with that in a second here.
To win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win, oh, play to win. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win.
All right. I think the first time you were on the show, I had like a little baby intro, and I figured out I can't use that stuff because I got kicked off of Twitter for like a day for stuff like that.
They're so serious about that stuff.
They are. So I had to be careful. I like this one though. But Stephie, 3 days of the NFL draft, a lot of people went crazy with content. A lot of people relaxed. What did you do for the NFL draft? What was your 3 days looking like?
White claws. No. So I jumped on a ton of podcasts, like basically did guest appearances the entire time. I will admit it did take away a little bit from my draft experience. Like I found myself the night after after the draft was done rewatching, because I like to see the reactions, and then I felt like I missed some of the teams, like who picked what, because you start getting so excited about your own team. So I feel like I had to do a lot of review afterwards, because being on all the guest appearances, obviously it takes away from the entire experience. But it was fun. It was awesome. I definitely got to collaborate with some people that I didn't get to, and I had a blast. It was fun just to they were all like really chill, laid back like collaborations too.
Yeah.
Friends virtually.
That's awesome too, because it kind of gives you that like chilling at the bar or chilling at somebody's house watching the draft kind of vibe versus a super scripted sort of show where you have to pull out the graphs and all that sort of stuff. Right. I was and I'll get into it in a little bit. My dad actually on Easter, he's like, I was planning on doing some podcasts with two different shows, and my dad's like, hey, I'd like to really spend it with you and your brother. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been actually looking into the draft more than I usually do. So with that, I kind of opted out of stuff, and we went to the local bar and watched it there, and probably got a little bit too crazy just because of what happened for Chicago. So get into that, but it turned into a long night there. But yeah, it was nice to just kind of relax and just pop in and out of a bunch of people from the fantasy communities podcast. A lot of people went hard with their content, and I really respect everybody who did. So we'll talk about our two teams though to start. I mean, I feel like it's only right. Our two teams. So Stephie is a big New York Giants fan. I'm a big Chicago Bears fan, for those who do not know that. And our teams shook hands that day and actually made a big blockbuster deal for the now and for the future. So we can get into that in a second. Stephie, I'm going to ask you about the first pick, but I do want to say that I like crystal ball halfway predicted this player that you might have to talk a little bit more about, but I'm going to play this clip here from one of the podcasts. I asked about, who's a guy that might get drafted earlier than most people think. Could be any position. The guy I threw out was Kadarius Toney. I'm not saying I'm a massive fan. I'm not saying I'm not. I'm just saying I think that the NFL, some NFL organization might look at Toney and say, hey, this guy is a different version of like a Deebo Samuel. We can use him in so many different ways and, line him up, in different areas and make this guy a weapon. So we're going to go grab him a little bit earlier than he's projected to go. So that was like my thinking behind it. Hey, an NFL organization might reach out and take this guy earlier than we all think. Yeah, that's about it. So I thought about it for Toney, and I can understand why a team might want to take him earlier than some people projected or mocked. So Stephie, I'm curious to hear, and you can go into the other draft picks if you want, but your Giants taking Kadarius Toney, and what else they did in this draft.
So here's the thing with Kadarius Toney, and I'll admit, like, I got a lot of kickback because I posted my reaction, and I was just surprised. Not that I didn't want Kadarius Toney, I was just surprised at that selection at that point in time. But when I was able to like calm down, and like even yesterday, I spent almost all day watching Kadarius Toney and all these guys, and Kadarius Toney, I actually think was a fantastic move now. Everyone argues, why did they, you have Galladay, you have all these, why did they take another receiver? Because Kadarius Toney isn't like your normal receiver. I mean, like, he adds explosiveness. He can play all over the field, the backfield, like outside. He can play special teams. This is a guy that I think actually fits perfectly here, because you have a guy that you can play him when you need him. He's going to make plays. And this is someone too that, and the more I start, I've been diving into film, my favorite thing now for receivers is body control. It's not something that I ever noticed, I feel like, prior to this year, but it's something that I'm really paying attention to now. Devontae Smith is another one that has this. Their body control and their ability to break tackles, like Kadarius Toney does it maybe arguably better than anyone in this draft class. I mean, I don't know how he scores on some of the plays. The dude is like using his arm on the ground. Like I'm pretty sure it should be down most of the time. But I think, yes, is there things that he needs to work on? Absolutely. But you take a guy like Joe Judge, and I think his idea here was you can craft the wide receiver that you want. People argue that this knocks Shep out. I disagree. I think this writes Slayton out of the playbook. I don't see them knocking Shep out. I just think that you're going to see Slayton play less. I think that Kadarius Toney is definitely going to come out of the gate and get targets. I think that he will be that guy. He's very strong and competitive, and I think they need that flair like that. He's the guy when you need a ridiculous play to happen, he's going to make a ridiculous play, and he protects the ball. Not many, especially on the Giants, right? You look at Slayton, you look at Ingram. That's not protecting the ball. So this is a guy that can protect the ball. I think he kind of got brushed over because you watch the games and everyone's looking at Pitts. And I even did it when I was watching film. I didn't even pay attention to Toney. I liked him. I liked what I had seen, but I really only watched highlights. I was like, oh, this is cool. But I think he is someone, you may not see him getting, and this is something talking about the draft overall is everyone laughs at the Giants. But here's the thing. The Giants drafted this year not to win now. They drafted to prepare for the next 5 years. They drafted for 5 years. This is they're taking guys because they have a bigger picture. So I'm very satisfied with the way that the Giants went with this. I mean, they really said we're going to make sure we have a very threatening secondary, which they arguably already had. And then even in free agency, they also added. Speaking of wide receiver, they also added Ross. Don't forget about guys like that. But I think for them to add draft capital, I mean, they're going into 2022 with 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. They have 10 picks. That's if something goes wrong this year, it's okay because they can figure it out. And I just think it's impressive. I give them a B+, I think. That's what if I had to give them a grade, I would go B+, but I like what they did. And honestly, Aziz, that's maybe one of the steals of this draft. I mean, I promise you, if you switch the 2 picks, no one would even be talking about it.
Yeah. With Toney too, I think that not enough people look at, they brought in Kenny Golladay, and I feel like they really needed a guy to be very different from Kenny Golladay. I mean, if you look at a guy like Rashad Bateman, who a lot of people really like, I don't think he is a big compliment to Kenny Golladay, who is a possession wide receiver who can score a lot of touchdowns, be a red zone target. I think they needed that kind of diverse wide receiver who can be a playmaker with the ball in his hands. And, a lot of people would argue it, but at the same time, having a guy, I like Shepard actually, having a guy like Shepard. Yeah. I always kind of backed him. He just gets some knocks because he's not putting up those, 100-yard games. He's getting 7 catches though, and he's a guy that can handle some volume. So, I like the fact that they complimented Kenny Golladay, who I do like a lot.
And a good thing is that, sorry, not to interrupt you, that people forget too, is if you can be, and this is one of my pet peeves, when it comes to fantasy and stuff, is it's okay to have wide receivers from the same, it's okay to have more than one good wide receiver on a team. They just need to be a productive offense. So the question here is, can Jason Garrett come up with a scheme that's going to work for the players that he has now? So if they're productive, you take the pressure off of some of these guys like Slayton, like Shepard, like Ingram, the guys that need a wide receiver 1, because historically their production has been better with decreased targets in a wide receiver 1. All of them. Shepard, I think, will absolutely, he's one of my favorite. I mean, people are sleeping on him. You could get him for a nickel right now. Seriously, it's crazy to me because he had one of his best seasons last year and people don't realize that. His completion rate was the highest on the team at 74.3%, I want to say. And that's still Daniel Jones's guy. He can get the job done when Daniel needs him. And I think to avoid injuries, you add guys to take pressure off. But if you can be productive, it's really going to come down to Jason Garrett and that O-line. If they can be productive, I'm not worried about Daniel Jones or the weapons, honestly.
Yeah. And a guy like Shepard you're mentioning, just look at the target share when he's healthy. I mean, look at the volume that's coming into him. And, Danny Dimes does like him. With Aziz, I looked at the fantasy points because I, again, look at that. I'm not BSing. I actually look on their stuff for everything. They ranked Aziz for edge. They listed him as the edge. Number 4. And if you look at the draft, 3 outside linebackers, 2 inside linebackers, 4 defensive ends went before him. And I think he slipped because of something along the lines of having some arthritis stuff in the knee. But like you're saying, he should have probably went a lot higher in this draft just based off of how experts ranked him.
Yeah. It's
so
funny. I
that-
had a tweet that was like, fantasy analysts will be like, oh, he stubbed his toe in 10th grade, fade him.
I
Like,
think I seen
this
that.
was
actually,
about
yeah.
him because he tore his ACL in high school. Okay, when a player tears something, has surgery in high school, but they make it through college, I don't care. Like, don't tell me that they had a high school injury, because my follow-up question is going to be, well, did it repeat in college? Did they have an injury in college? And if you tell me no, I'm going to
slow them down. Yeah. Was their athleticism jeopardized?
I don't worry about him. He's going to be just fine.
All right, so our teams again, big trades. Chicago Bears took a chance at moving up in the draft, and the Giants benefited for next year. They got a first for next year. They got the first for this year. I think a fourth as well next year. They got a handful of picks there.
Mm-hmm.
I had I wanted to paint a picture. So I made a TikTok. It's brief here, but I want to show anybody who hasn't seen. But this is literally how it's felt as a Bears fan for months now. Yep, they're letting Mitch go. So new quarterback. So Deshaun wants out. Could be an option. Nah, he might be in some trouble. Now Russell Wilson wants out. He listed the Bears as a spot. Andy Dalton, QB1. Gonna have to pick a new team. Maybe them. I don't know. Maybe Ravens. I just need a new team. Is what it is. We traded up in the draft. Please, for the love of God, do not do it.
Chicago Bears select Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State.
All right, so I just had to run through that whole process because the last couple months it's been the craziest roller coaster of emotions. And having Justin Fields, I personally, I don't know how you ranked him before the draft, Stephie. I had him as my QB2. I thought the Jets, you had him as QB1?
I did.
Really? It's hard to keep up with everybody where they had everybody, but I literally kept saying, and I was like finding these, Photoshop pictures of him in a Jets uniform. I kept saying, I don't know why the Jets are not grabbing this guy. And I actually thought that they were going to do it. So getting him later in the draft, he falls off. The guy ball carrying with a great arm. The play action with his mobility is going to be awesome in the NFL. Super competitive. Again, my number 2 in the class. You saw what he did at Clemson. I know it's one game, but throwing the ball deep with that sort of accuracy in that game and then getting hit and coming back. I love the pick, and I love the fact that they supplemented that pick with Tevin Jenkins, who a lot of people thought might have went in the first round, and they got him in the second round. So I think, you talk about O-lines a lot often. So I think getting that quarterback who I love this quarterback, and then getting the O-lineman right afterwards that probably slipped a little bit. I thought the Bears had a great draft, not even looking later at what they did. And I think this offense is going to be more exciting now. I think just personally as a fan, on Sundays, I get to wake up for the first time in 29 years and be excited for a quarterback. So I've been talking about it too much on Twitter, and I've been annoying. But Stephie, any brief thoughts about the Bears and what they did?
Well, first of all, this is awesome. One, because you get Allen Robinson finally gets a quarterback. I was worried, honestly, he still wasn't going to end up playing for you guys, to be honest. Like, I have been preaching that. I'm like, I'm not totally sold that he's not going to find a way out of there. So I think one, you're showing that you actually are ready for a change. I think that Justin Fields is fantastic. Like, my player comp, if I had to comp him, is like Dak Prescott. That's how personally, I just see that. I see a lot of similarities. I think he was one of the most, besides for Lawrence, the most NFL ready out of all of these quarterbacks that we saw, because the things that he needs to fix are things that can be fixed with a little coaching, some good NFL practice, and I don't see that being a problem. He's also he's just a confident player too, and that's very important. So I think he'll walk in there. He's going to be that dude. We'll see if they actually start Dalton. And you know what? It's not that big. It's actually kind of awesome that Dalton, Dalton's a good person to be there, I think. It's not, no knock to Dalton. He still had a solid career. We can't like knock the dude, So I think that's awesome. And then you always hear like build from the trenches and then go for the quarterback. So you guys were able to do that also, which is awesome. Like those two, you couldn't have done better on either end. And I think we'll see what they end up doing. I would be surprised. I think Dalton will maybe play 2 games. I see them playing Fields pretty quick. I mean, you saw what they did in and out with Foles and Trubisky. I don't know that, I think they're going to see Fields get to practice and be like, put him in.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, when, again, I don't want to talk about Trubisky too much or anything, but when Trubisky was drafted, Mike Lennon, it was the same sort of thing. They signed Mike Lennon, and people were like, are you kidding me with this? They drafted Mitch, and then after 4 games, he came in. But at the same time, if Fields is ready to go, you said he's extremely pro ready. If he's ready to go, I think Nagy and Pace still have some pressure on them. So I think they're going to put their best foot forward with this, and it might be a day 1 start for Fields, which would be exciting. And get some people backing the organization a little bit more.
Yeah, so, definitely. And
absolutely.
I think having I don't even know how to explain it, like a fine-tuned wide receiver like Allen Robinson is perfect for someone like Justin Fields. Like,
oh yeah,
because he's someone that like kind of has to bail out and then he'll move stupidly in the pocket. Like he makes those kind of mistakes. So I think having someone like that to practice with it's just beautiful.
Absolutely. So we'll stop talking about our own teams now and talk about a couple other teams, I guess. I'm sure we can talk about the Bears and the Giants, what they did for a while here. But first question. So what I had planned out is just to ask some questions that a lot of people have after some decisions that went on with the draft. And the first one I'd like to throw out there is with the Bengals. So there was a lot of 50-50 mocks having them drafting Jamar Chase or drafting Penei Sewell. You look at a guy like Chase, obviously he played with Joe Burrow. They have that history. Sewell, on the other hand, everybody had. Actually, I don't think you had. I think you had Slater at one point, if I recall correctly. He was my OC1. Yeah. But a lot of people did have Sewell as the go-to for this team, just based off of Joe Burrow getting destroyed this past season and having that bad injury. So my question to you, Stephie, is: do you think the Bengals drafting Chase over Sewell was a mistake?
No, I don't. I think that, it's hard for me to say because I understand that, he got hurt and everyone's worried. And listen, their O-line blew last year. Like, let's just call it what it was. It was not very good. But I think people are forgetting it's not that they made no movements to address the O-line either. I mean, they got Riley Reef in free agency. They also drafted, what's the kid's name? Carmen in the second round, maybe?
Jackson Carmen, in the second.
Yeah, They could kick him inside to guard, at least for this year. You have Jonah Williams still there. It did get better. Like, they did not address it at all. So I think it's very easy to be critical, but I think that they still made improvements. Are they going to be a top 10 O-line? No, but are they going to protect Joe Burrow more? Absolutely. So where do you weigh, do you take, someone like Chase, or do you wait around? Like, I don't think it was that bad of a move. I get it, and I understand the criticism, but I think that this also just gives, it's giving Burrow another weapon. So maybe he doesn't have to spend as much time in the pocket. So I think there's an argument for both sides, but just to be clear, like, they didn't not address it. And they do have Jonah Williams. Like, they drafted Carmen. I think they drafted another 2 guys maybe later on in the draft too. And then they took Riley Reef in free agency. So it's not like they didn't address it at all. And I think that people forget that also.
Yep. I agree with that. I think it'd be a completely different story if they went out and said, hey, we really need to protect Joe Burrow, and did nothing about it, versus, hey, we are going to do something about it just later than some people may want. Like you said, Jackson Carmen in the second, another tackle, Deante Smith in the fourth. So they did add some guys to the O-line there. I read an article, I read the bulk of it, but ESPN came out with an article today talking about how Sewell is what people said they should have done. But at the same time, Burrow was worse this past season when he held onto the ball longer. And they thought that bringing in a guy like Chase, who he had chemistry with and who can separate quick, get open quick, find space quick, will actually protect Joe Burrow more. And I actually thought that was interesting because I don't think a lot of people talked about that enough. Because if, not to say I like Tyler Boyd a lot, and a lot of people like T. Higgins, but if you got this Jamar Chase, who he has chemistry with, who is a complete all-around receiver, who is quick off the line getting open, and Joe Burrow can quick release, I think that is just as protective at times than having a guy who's going to protect you while you're 7 seconds, 5 seconds in the pocket. So I thought that was interesting.
You know, you still added, it's not that they did nothing, and they have room now because you took someone like Carmen, who, you know, you can kick him inside to guard, and you can utilize Jonah Williams and these guys that you already have, because I think that there was things that were definitely functionally wrong there. But I think you bring someone in like Chase, and just like you said, and I was saying earlier, like, he doesn't need as much time to connect with him. Chase is that player that can make a difference that way. So basically what they did was improve the O-line. Yeah, everyone could say they didn't. They improved the O-line. They added depth to it, added better players. It's better than last year. I forget. I think it might be PFF, who I'm not a huge fan of, but they were in the top 4 most improved O-lines during free agency during this offseason. I forget if they included the draft or not, but like, they did improve. It's not that they didn't improve. So you bring Jamar in, you make the little changes so that he has extra time to hit targets like Higgins. And then also you have improvement because you have Chase, and he has that chemistry. I mean, we saw it across the league. It's so funny how many people got paired up. Waddle, all these guys that got paired up with their old buddy, which I think is awesome. So I think Burrow was a great person to have right now to pick up in fantasy. I think personally, because people are a little low on him. You know how everyone gets with ACL, tears. People forget. Let me just remind everyone, like Tom Brady, he tore his ACL. Just everyone remember, like, it's not a death wish. It's okay. Medical advancements have happened, and he will be just fine. But yeah, you want to protect your quarterback. They're doing that by making changes. But you know what? They valued Chase more than they value Penny, and I don't see anything too wrong with that.
I don't either, especially seeing, everybody loves Justin Jefferson. And if you look at the stats from when they both were on the field with Joe Burrow, they both had a good season, but Chase led the NCAA in receiving yards. He led the NCAA in receiving touchdowns that year. They both were on the field, and I think a lot of people profile him as that complete wide receiver. So I think passing up on him actually might have been the mistake, because they would have been taking a tier down in the second round to a wide receiver if that's the route they wanted to go. Let's shift over. So Chase, again, I'm not going to say he's your 1-1 or my 1-1, but for a lot of people, he was the 1-1 of wide receivers in this class. Now, Najee Harris, on the other hand. So I have the list of the running backs in front of us right now. Najee Harris went first overall, first round pick 24 by the Steelers. My question now to you, looking at the running back position, or maybe just the rookies in general. So if we're looking at leagues that are non-super flex, because a lot of people, like, for instance, my one of my leagues I run, we have a rookie draft this weekend, a home league. So we're all getting together. Should be a good time, and we'll be drafting. Last year, when it came to who's that 101, I'd say if you look at ADP, maybe not your opinion or mine, but ADP, CEH in non-super flex leagues was that 101 last year because of the situation and yada, yada. For Najee Harris, is he this year CEH? Is he the 101 for you in non-super flex leagues?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I think taking him in the first round is still a little early. I don't like a late first round is like fine. But my thing is, I think that Najee has the advantage maybe that CH didn't have. Yes, I know it sounds ridiculous because the Steelers literally couldn't run the ball last year, and I understand that. But what you have to realize is Big Ben's arm is not what it was anymore. They have to switch to a running game, whether they like it or not. They do not have the option. Like, he should have retired. They can't keep up with the passing game the way that they have been. It's just not going to happen. So I think that Najee at least gives Pitt that upper hand there. And I think that you're going to see them. He's going to just eat targets. Like, I don't know how that's possible. I mean, sure, maybe it'll only be like 17, 20 touches a game. Even if that's the case, he's productive in those 17 to 20. He's not your average, it's not the same as watching what we did last year with their running backs. I mean, you're adding a guy that's so dynamic. He's seriously awesome. He's someone that I was watching a lot yesterday too, because I was watching the team. And I watched the Bama-Florida game actually before I went to bed. And like, he's so freaking good. It's crazy. He actually does. I know you should never compare, but like, he has similarities to Saquon Barkley, like that forceful, very flexible, like can jump over, hurdle any person, like no one can get in his way. So that I think is awesome. And I think I would have him higher if he went into a better system. But I still don't think this is a bad system because of the fact that they have to switch to a running game. And maybe it's not a very good running game, but they're going to switch to a running game more than they did last year. They have to figure it out. Like it's not an option because of how old their quarterback is.
Yeah. And I think, and you mentioned it before too, they had the worst running offense in the league when you look at the yardage. And I think this is a team that, as Big Ben ages, they need to diversify their offense. I mean, they were very good last year in terms of getting points and stuff and winning games, but at the same time, you have to establish the run at some point, especially with preserving Big Ben if you want to get to those playoffs. Here's an interesting tidbit here for rookies. So these guys were rookies from 2015 to 2020 who finished top 10 for their position. So 2015, Todd Gurley was the RB9 his rookie season. 2016, Zeke RB2. 2017, Kamara RB3. 2018, Saquon RB1. 2020, JT RB6. So is it safe to say that given the volume for Najee Harris, if he's not competing with a ton there. If he does get this volume, even if the O-line is not the best, is that what we should expect for fantasy, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. And I think with him too is, we started to talk about these guys. He's someone that's going to produce for you this year, but like his ceiling for years to come, like this is like a very dynasty pick. I don't know that I'm going to be taking him in redraft that much, but like he's someone for dynasty, like hell yeah, that's awesome. There's a little bit of risk there in redraft. And I see Bootleg commented and it hurt. This did hit my heart a little because Kalen Ballage, I was so excited about. I am a Kalen Ballage stan. But you might still see Kalen Ballage do well because again, they have to figure out the running game. It's gotta happen. They gotta get it moving. And if they don't, they're going to have a problem. Because we saw it all year, just the way we saw it happen to Breeze. The arm strength isn't there anymore. But I think that Najee can still be someone that produces. We have to see what the Steelers do this offseason. But he's not the guy that like, yeah, the O-line is this, is that. He's the guy that can get out of the way. And, it's in the way that Saquon can kind of thing. He reminds me very much like him.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And he just comes off as a true workhorse. I think if we look at the profiles of most of these other guys, some of these other guys had questions like, hey, is this guy going to get enough volume? Is he going to be, we'll talk about another one of these guys in a second, but is this guy going to be just a pass catcher? Is he going to be a complimentary back? There was no talk with that with Najee Harris. He was going to be a workhorse where he went, even if it meant competing with somebody. So I think that, it's hard to expect an RB, 1 through 10 season, rookie season. But again, if the volume's there and this is a team, to me, this is a team bringing back Juju, bringing back Big Ben. I mean, this is a team that wants to win. They were like 11, what were they, like 11-0 or something like that before they lost the first
and you know what? And this is something I preach all the time for the people that do follow me is like, there's this concept of use and abuse. And I think the Steelers are another perfect example of that. And they remind me of the New York Giants in the fact where they rely very much on one player and that doesn't work, right? So we might see, like, don't be surprised if Juju does fantastic next year. Like, don't be shocked because now if they can get that running game going and they can get Harris in this game, which it shouldn't be hard. He's someone that's very NFL ready, right? Like, I don't even know if watching the game last night, I'm like, I don't even know if defenders in the NFL could stop him. Like they're barely stopping him here, but I still think if it was like some of the best defenders, they're going to have a hard time with this guy. But seriously, like, I don't know. I just feel like Harris, there's no reason for him not to do well, but him taking away that use and abuse factor from some of these guys that we love, that everyone's been very hard on. Watch it. I know it's like hard to realize, but you can be more productive with less targets. Like, you don't need that many targets if you're productive when you catch the ball. So I think that you'll see that a little bit in the Steelers, unless, unless Big Ben like totally shits the bed, which I hope not. I want these guys to go out on a good note, but so we'll see how it goes over there.
All right. Well, we'll move on from Najee. We'll stick on the running back position though. So here's another question people had. So we already asked, hey, should the Bengals have drafted Jamar Chase? I think both of us said, yeah, they're it made some sense there. My next question comes for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So going back to your boy Tony, there was rumors that Urban Meyer actually wanted Tony. So maybe that kind of pushed the Giants a little bit. But James Robinson this past season had over 1,000 yards rushing. He was tied for 6th for rushing yards for running backs, 49 receptions. He was tied for 9th for running backs in the league catching the ball. He was a top 10 fantasy running back as well. A lot of people wonder why did they take the Jacksonville Jaguars, Travis Etienne, first round pick 25? Was it necessary, in your opinion, for Jacksonville to do this?
Was it necessary? No. But did they do it? Yes. Is it just another weapon? Absolutely. And when Urban Meyer says that he's a third down back, no, he's not. Like, that's not going to happen.
Not in the first round.
Like, let's all be clear right now. He's going to get if he plays on the field, he's going to be the dude. Like, this is not a third down back the way that he's trying to describe it and not hurt anyone's feelings. So I think that Urban Meyer is obviously, I don't know, if you wanted a third down back, you could have waited, bro, like until the second, third round. Like, you didn't,
fourth, maybe.
What are you doing? So I think he's just, I think they did a similar scenario to what the Giants did. And, they all come from the same type of systems, but it's basically what they did was they had their board. When the player that they had on the top went, they crossed it off, and then they just went down, and whatever player was there, they took, because they're drafting for the future. They're not drafting entirely for like what's going to happen right now. But does this hurt those other guys on the team? Absolutely. Because like Etienne's, again, another one of those players like Harris, it's going to come in and make a difference right away. He's not a third down back. Don't let anyone tell you that. If they tell you that, they're lying.
There's actually plenty of those guys that got drafted way later. I mean, you look at a guy like Michael Carter from the Jets. Yeah, him, Kenny Gainwell is could be a third down back. There's a lot of guys later they could have taken.
Late. Gainwell went very late for what we thought was going to happen. Like, if he really wanted a third down back, trust me, Urban Meyer would have done that. Like, he could have waited. So I think that obviously there was a plan there, and you're just getting another weapon. And I'm excited to see what they do over there, how they're going to put it all together.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. I think it's tough to draft a guy in the first round who was good in college with your new quarterback and say, hey, he's just going to be a third down guy. I think I try to always relate a lot of things to fantasy, but I feel like it's like taking over an orphan dynasty team. Urban Meyer is the dynasty manager, and they're like, hey, you got plenty of running backs. Like, you don't have to draft one in this rookie draft. And he's like, well, it's my team now, and I want to go and get the guys I want to bring into the system. He's adopting this team.
Also, what Joe Judge did, right? You see all these guys.
Exactly.
You watch Flores do it. All these coaches, you're watching them do it across the league.
They're going to shape the team that they want. I mean, they're not. They didn't establish the team to begin with. And you mentioned before some of the combinations from guys in the league combined with guys that they once were connected with. We mentioned Chase and Burrow, Hurts and Smith, Waddle and Tua, Etienne and Lawrence. Now, I mean, I think it's a good thing to bring in a quarterback that's your new face of the franchise and say, hey, buddy, here's your guy from college. I mean, what makes a guy more happy than having a guy he probably ate lunch with every day?
Absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, it does suck for James Robinson if he does lose out on the touches. There was a lot of positions they could have addressed at the same time. But again, I don't knock a guy for coming in and wanting to shape things out his way. I want to shift over to one more running back. Sure. This one's interesting because a lot of people have been debating about this on Twitter and what to do. So this man right here is now a Denver Bronco. Some people had him as the RB1 in the class. Some people had him as the RB2, the 3. But a lot of people think he's very good. And the big question when it comes to Javonte Williams, does this guy destroy Melvin Gordon's fantasy value? And if so, like, what are you doing? If you have him in Dynasty, like, what are you doing?
Ugh, this stinks. It's so funny. I almost tweeted today before I got on, like, how do we or before I saw the show sheet even, I was like, I don't know how to feel about Melvin Gordon. Like, I don't know exactly how to feel. My feeling is they will start, this is just if I were to predict, I think they're going to start out sharing more of it's going to be more of a sharing situation in the backfield. But then, if Williams proves that he's this guy that everyone is talking about, he might end up eating up those shares afterwards. I think a lot of it is also going to depend on, are these Rodgers rumors true? Are we going to see Rodgers over there? How is that going to play a part? Because Rodgers likes to find his guys and he just feeds them. So that will play a big part in it. But right now, like playing best ball, I'm not picking up Melvin Gordon. There's a little bit too much of a risk right there because of the player that Williams is. But again, they could go into this and maybe Williams, as he's splitting shares, it's not going as well as they expected. And you see Gordon pick up the slack, or it could be the other way around. So I'm not entirely sure. This was like the one question that I was like, I really don't know. I'm a little stumped with Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon last season, 5 games of 18-plus touches. His last game of the season, he had 26 carries and 4 catches. So he was getting some decent volume, and you were happy as a dynasty manager if you had this guy on your team. At the same time, I can see like what you alluded to. Maybe it's a little bit of a 2-back system, and then one guy takes over. We saw with Jonathan Taylor this past season. Other guys were getting the touches until he just said, this is my job. What's interesting about the Broncos is they moved up 5 spots to get this guy. So it's not like they traded a house. Yeah. They moved up 5 spots, got him. And I'm pretty sure I thought I heard somebody talking about Vic Fangio just like fist pumping. So that I'm moving up 5 spots. Head coach is fist pumping. I have some faith Javonte is going to be a beast.
Yeah. And if teams are moving up, like that's their guy. Like they like
absolutely.
That's something to look out for. Like if that means they're nervous, someone is going to take them from them.
Yes.
So that's a telltale sign that they obviously very much like scouting this dude. So they probably were excited that he fell because maybe he shouldn't have. But I think that obviously that there's some preference there. Is it cool that he gets to work with Gordon though? Yeah, definitely. But that can only be positive for Williams, and we might see that switch where he takes over the targets.
Yep, could be the case. My advice, and I'm curious just to hear yours. If you have Melvin Gordon, you put him on the trade block in Sleeper or something like that. You're not going to get the best offers right now, and there could be a world where Melvin Gordon ends up not on the Broncos day one. There could be a world of that. So if he's not on the Broncos day one, or if he does somehow manage to get drove into the ground the first handful of games before they give the keys, I think you're doing a injustice of shipping Melvin Gordon off for a third in 2021 or something like that.
I'm stashing him probably right now, unless you have like a Gordon, like unless you have some kind of Gordon stan like in your league that you can maybe like bribe to give you a little bit more. I think I'm definitely holding on him right now, because what you could do, and this is something I do a lot, is like if he like nails it week 1, week 2, then people get convinced, that was dumb. I definitely want to buy him like Williams did, but because people are so impatient. And then by week 5, we see all these rookies break out. So I usually wait on these type of guys. Yeah. And then when he comes out and is the main dude, week 1, 2, 3, sell him week 4 and then be done with it. That's like the best way to get value in a guy like this.
And that's just from experience. And I learned the hard way. I this past season in some of my leagues was very impatient with running backs that were great at the end of the season. I think you do have to have that patience and kind of play your league. I'm not trying to tell you to, finesse your league, but play your league when it comes to the right times of this guy stepping up. He had a good week, things like that. So
I play my league. I take tight ends, like I hoard tight ends and then I sell them for king's ransom. Like that's like my ultimate. That's like I've been doing this for so many years and it has yet to fail me. So I don't do it in redraft, obviously, but like in dynasty startups, it's like the most fun ever. Yeah,
it's funny. In one of my home leagues, I actually did the same thing. I hoarded like Darren Waller, Mike Gesicki. I had Irv Smith. I was going down the list, and through the season, guys were getting banged up and stuff, and people were knocking on my door, paying high price for guys that are like, okay. And now I'll probably end up drafting in that league in like 2 weeks, like Kyle Pitts. And I don't need Kyle Pitts, but I'm going to draft Kyle Pitts. So
listen to the noise. Like, you got to listen to the noise. Like, when people are
always.
People, just get rid of that dude, because you're going to get such a high value for him. Like, that's why I'm selling, like, DK Metcalf this is the time. I've gotten rid of him for so much. And I just think with the Seahawks right now, like, you're not going to see a higher time for him, I think, than right now.
I did see that clip, actually. I think you might have had that pinned or something, but you did make some good points, though, because the name is all the way up here, and maybe the value is not going to be there next season or in the future, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Want to shift over. We've got about 15 minutes here. I want to shift over to the wide receiver position. So a couple guys, and I think, I got super creative today with, screenshotting some graphics.
So cool.
They're not even graphics. They're just screenshots, but I'll throw them up on the board here. So I got a couple of guys that went in the second round, and I wanted to grab these guys here. So Elijah Moore went to the Jets, Rondale Moore to the Cardinals, Dwayne Eskridge to the Seahawks, Tutu Atwell to the Rams, Terrace Marshall Jr. fell to the Panthers. And I'm just reading this off because it'll be on iTunes. They can't see the screen. So my question to you, Stephie, second round wide receivers from this class. You are on the clock for a startup, for the rookie draft, whatever the case is. Which one of these guys are you picking personally?
Well, here's the thing with these guys. Like, some of these guys I think could be great stashes. I think like someone like Tutu, someone like Rondale Moore, who don't be surprised if Rondale Moore ends up showing up. I think these placements are all beautiful, actually. The person that there's two people that interest me the most. One that I would love to stash is Dwayne Eskridge. And I know that was the biggest head scratcher. We all hated that. And I understand that. But I think there's going to come a point where the Seahawks are going to get desperate. And you're going to see Eskridge end up being a part of this offense, whether it's this year or next year or the year after. I just feel that's just my gut is telling me there's a reason they did that. Because it was such a weird pick. Whenever it's weird, I feel like the team somewhat has a plan, especially a team like the Seahawks, even though they make weird picks and do weird stuff all the time. So I'm interested in like stashing him. And then Terrace Marshall is such a good talent. Like, I cannot believe where he ended up going. Crazy. It blows my mind. And then you put him on the Panthers, you're just stacking talent over there at this point, and you never know who's going to end up getting a chance to play. He's someone that could break out during a game and forget it. He's starting every game. So I think you can't go wrong with any of these. I think Elijah Moore, great pick, fantastic. I'm less confident because of who he does have to split time with, and because I'm not a Zach Wilson fan. So that I would stay away from. Maybe I'm a little biased because, I love my Mims. So that hurt me a little bit. So I really don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys. If they're all on the board, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning Rondale Moore, honestly. I think that Arizona could use that help more than any of these other teams. So I think he has the better chance of maybe starting.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, AJ Green is there. I don't know what we can expect out of him, how many games he's going to play. Christian Kirk has been very disappointing. And I think, again, we talked about Kenny Golladay and Tony before. Look at DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore. They're very, very different players. So a guy can come in and say, hey, I'm going to bring you something Hopkins is not bringing. Not that Hopkins can't bring a lot of things, but he's just very different for that offense, which is very explosive with Kyler using the legs. So I agree to that. I actually had Terrace Marshall as my, I think wide receiver 4. I was pretty high on him before the draft.
I was too. I was very high on him. And I think he will, I just think he has to split more talent than someone like Rondale Moore, where I think he's fighting for less, where I think,
why he gets bumped down. Yep.
Exactly. But he's someone he's a great stash. He will end up playing for this team at some point. It's just, I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, with Curtis gone, are they going to use 3 wide receivers? I definitely think they can. With Ian Thomas, not a pass catcher, bringing in Tremble. Maybe he will provide some extra cushion for that. But I really like Elijah Moore. Been high on him for a bit. This guy had AJ Brown crying on his draft day because they were together for that.
Oh my gosh, it was so. I love all those videos.
That was awesome. They were holding somebody out of the room. There was a lot of dynamics in that video. But Elijah Moore, my big thing, my hesitation, and you kind of brought it up a little bit, is Jamison Crowder. I don't know if he's going to be on the team next season or not, because I feel like I read up that they can cut him and save some money. Them two are big slot guys. And Elijah Moore, he can line up elsewhere. Great route running. The separation's good. I think, guys like Mims and Corey Davis can still be successful with Elijah, but I feel like Elijah Moore might be, if Jamison Crowder's gone, might be a big target guy. And I love target guys that get like 7-8 targets a game. So I don't know what Wilson has to offer. Like you said, you're not super high in him. I was not as high as everybody else. I'm not going to say he's a bum or a bust, but I think if he's a quarterback that can sling okay, and Elijah's a guy that can separate very well, I think he can be good. So I think I might go.
I just want to see how it comes together over there on the Jets. That's another team where I'm not like, I see what they're doing, and like I think they had a fantastic draft. I'm just having a hard time putting the pieces together in my head. So I just need to see it to believe it. But I'm sure, I just think Wilson's going to have a learning curve is all. A little bit more than some. I don't find him as NFL ready as the other guys. That's why I was lower on him.
Yeah, and it is a big question mark, because if you ask, right now, are they gonna throw the ball like a ton, first, second quarter every game? Where are those targets going to be spread out? Is one guy going to be like the go-to and everybody else's big play? There is a lot of question marks. So I completely get that. We'll get to one last question here. One last question before we wrap things up. But again, the reason I talk about this is because some people like myself have rookie drafts coming up or startups. So 5th through 7th round, it's tough because a lot of times these guys are stashes or, the very end of your rookie draft sort of guys that you grab. But some of these guys can pan out later on, especially in Dynasty. So looking at rounds 5 through 7 of this NFL draft, Stephie, who's a guy that stands out as somebody that you might take a shot on or have some confidence in or stash, somebody that stands out to you?
Can I say I'm breaking the rules on our first podcast? Can I say someone that?
Oh man,
I have to.
Oh, go ahead. Can
I say someone that honestly I was shocked that they went round 4, and I think people are low on him still, so I think he qualifies. Is Jalen Darden? And you guys know that follow me. I have been a Jalen Darden stan since before time. He ended up going in round 4. The Buccaneers did trade up for him. Okay, so look up for the trading up. They traded up for him. This could not have been it broke my heart because I have to buy a Bucs jersey now, and that makes me sick. But this could not have been a more perfect placement for this kid. He is one of the best receivers in this class. There's a few things that needs to get worked out. There's some kinks there. And he's, Jake Seeley came on my show not too long ago, and this was the best way to describe him is he's trying to catch a fly in a house. Once you catch him, he's screwed kind of, but he's impossible. He's the shiftiest player that I've seen in forever. He has good football IQ. He being able to train under Tom Brady, being able to train in a system that is pass heavy, you know that system loves to pass the ball. Giving this kid even just 1 year, even if he doesn't make the roster, giving this kid 1 year to train over some of these, under some of these guys, you've got really good receiver core over there. He's going to play with Antonio Brown. He's someone that I'm telling you at some point is going to be the difference in this league. He's fantastic. I would love to see him. I personally think he will end up getting playing time. I think the Arians obviously see something in him, and I thought people were saying he wasn't going to get drafted. So for him to go in the 4th round, I was so freaking proud of this kid. He works his butt off too, and I like guys like that. He's a grinder. He has a chip on his shoulder. watch out for guys like that. So I think he couldn't have gone to a more nutritious system that's going to treat him very well. Once this kid starts, he is going to be a fantasy machine. Like, if you haven't watched his film, go watch at least his highlights. The dude is awesome.
Jalen Darden. A lot of people, when people would survey like who's a sleeper in this draft before the draft, a handful of people were throwing his name in there. And I think what's important for Dynasty is that you don't always look at these late picks of your Dynasty drafts and say, hey, you know, he's behind Evans and Godwin and Antonio Brown. He's not going to play. You're playing Dynasty. So these late round picks, you got to be looking forward. And a guy like that, like you are saying, is going to do nothing but learn every single day at practice from Tom Brady and from Bruce Arians and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So if it's not this year, I mean, it's somewhere down the road. And being a system like that.
You know, the Bucs they swap wide receivers like crazy. So does he find a way to utilize this kid? Do I think he's going to, I don't think you would see him until past week 7. But will you end up seeing him? Maybe in games that maybe they're crushing. This kid is very, very good.
All right. Stephie's got the stamp on.
I know it wasn't a 5th round. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I like it because it wasn't like an obvious one in the 4th. Like,
I wasn't expecting him or Trey McKitty to go. Those were like 2 of my guys. And when they went in the 4th round, I was like, I couldn't even believe my eyes because everyone was saying that they were going to slip. So he's someone that is just fantastic. He couldn't have gone to a better place. Like, I wanted him for the Giants, but this is such a beautiful system for him.
Absolutely. And again, a place he's going to absorb and learn and maybe get some time this year. I mean, it could be a sleeper end of the season. Someone's banged up and he's slipping right in there.
Exactly.
I threw in there, and a lot of people kind of knock him and we're drawing a lot of questions, but I still got some faith in Brevin Jordan, third pick of the 5th round. The guy in college was effective on multiple layers of the field, making plays. He's very competitive blocking. And, you know, if a guy wants to block and he can catch, he's going to get some time. And if you look at the Texans, I know everybody's like, who's throwing them the ball? I had a question about, is it David Mills? Is it Tyrod Taylor? Will Deshaun Watson be in trouble? At the same time, I think he landed in a spot where he can play right away. They have Brandon Cooks, they have Nico Collins, they have Kiki Kuti, and I don't think I'm missing another pass catcher. So he's the only tight end with 300+ yards after contact this past season. PFF, who you mentioned before, put that out there. Again, factor multiple spots of the field. If I'm throwing a dart later in the round, I'm like you, Stephie, I want to take as many tight ends as possible because the one that pans out is going to have a high price later. So Brevin Jordan's the guy that I still have faith in. I don't know if you like him at all.
And I'm not as low on Mills as everyone else is. I think that he had a pretty productive college career. I mean, threw for over 3,500 yards. He's still, he played 14. He still had a good, he's not a fantastic quarterback, but he's one of these vanilla game managers. And I think that you're going to see someone like Brevin Jordan go into that system and end up getting a lot of targets because it's going to work. I just think I could see this team not being the entire crapshoot that we think. Are they going to be successful without, I don't know what's going on with Watson. We don't get into it, but it's I don't know that he's playing next year, but I think they have options there that are viable. And we saw that this year with backup quarterbacks. But I think a lot of people, just looping back around, a lot of people are very low on this tight end class. And I think that's a mistake because there is some serious tight end talent. It's just, so there's a difference in there not being good talent and there not being NFL ready talent. And the difference is the tight ends are not NFL ready, but they can be. Another one that gets brushed over is Yeboah. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he's awesome. I have a little bit of PTSD for obvious Ingram reasons, but he's a really, really good tight end. So I think we're going to see, and a lot of these guys didn't even play last year, so it's hard to even predict what's going to happen. But you can't knock them until they get up there, and it's a totally different system. So there is a learning curve. It's a faster game. It's a totally different, it's a different animal. So I think that don't be scared if there's crap left. But someone like Yeboah, McKitty, Jordan, like if those guys are there, just stack them. Because in this tight end game, you never know when it's going to be the next Waller. Like you don't know. So I think that's one of the, whenever I am panicking, I just go tight end. Like I find a tight end that has a chance to like potentially do very well and go from there.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If I see that late in a draft, the tight end has a chance to get some sort of volume in an offense. We talked about Tremble before. We talked about Yeboah. I think I was calling him Yaboy or something like that. But Brevin Jordan's another guy. And also, I think a lot of these guys get that Pitts cloud hanging over them. Like, oh, it's Kyle Pitts. Everything else is just secondary. But
he's like a wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to have that slash on his position. But we've seen so many guys, like you said, Waller pop up out of nowhere. Logan Thomas was very usable in fantasy. Robert Tonyan was very usable in fantasy. There's a lot of guys that pop out of nowhere. So if you can find one of those guys in your rookie draft, you'll have some good value there. So good show, Stephie. I'm sure we could have BS for a long time here, but I'm going to cut the show off at the hour mark. So many questions surrounding the rookie draft, so I'm glad we got to hash out some of these, and I'm sure it'll be the hot topic until the next season here. So, Stephie, where can we find you? And then if you want to plug anything coming up for you, plug it.
Yeah, at Stephie Smalls with 3 L's. Basically, everything I do is on Twitter. This was a blast. I'm actually really looking forward to this show. You always, when you go to do a first show, you're not entirely sure how it's going to go, but this was awesome. Like, I'm actually so pumped. Easy conversation. We'll have a blast. Doing this show. I'm actually very, very excited. So I'm on this show. I have our Friday show with my Dave Kluge. And then, of course, Small Talk. That my last episode came out yesterday, so check that out especially if you're into like betting. I do a little bit more betting stuff on there. So exciting stuff coming for the fall. We'll keep everything else under wrap, but I'm pumped to be doing the show. It's gonna be a blast.
Absolutely. So if you like this show, be sure to subscribe everywhere we push it out. But we'll be every Thursday here, Stephie and I, Skrip to Ships. I think it's gonna be a great show as well. I think it was very straightforward. Hashed out some good stuff here, and I'm looking forward to the weekly broadcast here. You can catch me. I'm going to be on, I believe, the Dynasty Rewind on Tuesday, and then with John McGlynn the week after on Tuesday, and then Thursdays here with Stephie. So thank you guys so much for listening, and everybody have a good night. Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, see ya.